Hi there. It's Trisha Broderick with Ignite Insight and Innovation, and it's 2025. I have to say, though, this year has already started off a little intense. My heart goes out to those in New Orleans from the tragedy on New Year's, as well as the fires going on in LA. I do a lot of work for a client in the Santa Monica office, and the fires are not far, and there's so many people impacted. So we're just gonna power through, but I'm hoping for a much calmer 2025 as this continues. This seems like a very intense start, so it even feels strange saying Happy New Year because it's been a lot already for many people, and so my heart is there with people and take one day at a time, one step at a time with things. So, New Year. I know this isn't the first Friday, but I was still kind of on break. I was coming back from Michigan, a vacation of seeing people. So, I decided the second Friday seemed more appropriate for January, and given everything else, seems even better. So, today's topic is about adding imagery and to your content, to your deliverables, to speaking, and why. So let me give a little bit of the background on imagery. Our brains tend to remember an image faster, especially if we can connect it to something we already know. So for a lot of US-based students, if I say Apple is for, people will immediately say A because it was kind of what was in every classroom growing up, was that little big block A and then the Apple image, right? And in a lot of ways, I can even remember B was for boat. and probably a number of us can go through a number of them along the way, but it helps us lock in. We retain it better. We recall it better when there's an image associated to it. Even us left brain people that are very I like to joke that I doodle in square lines. I doodle in straight, connective, logical lines, but I still doodle. It's just not very flowy. Mine are always cross, perfect points and things along those lines. So it's been a struggle for me to always add imagery, and I've written about this. I've talked about it in different ways, but I thought I'd kick this year off and give a little bit of some warnings and disclaimers as people are adding imagery and trying different things. There are things that maybe this is my pet peeves version of live starting off in January. It seems fitting, right? And so let me give some cautions with things. So one is be intentional about your image. There was I think it was a book called Presentation Zen. Don't quote me on the title. I couldn't even tell you the author. If somebody knows, throw it in comments. I'm starting off with bad research right off the bat and not prepared. But I've watched people go to sometimes an extreme, and they'll have no words on their slides or on their presentation, and only an image, which can be okay if the image is actually related to what you are talking about. It drives my brain bonkers when I'm trying to make a connection to the image that you have on the screen and what you are talking about. And there was a time when I did follow up with somebody. I was like, I just cannot make a connection. Like, what was that image? How did it relate to what the content was? And they're like, oh no, it didn't. I like the image. No, don't. You will break my brain doing that. It will distract me from what your point is. And that is not what you want. The purpose of the image is to be. You want it to be reinforcing your message. You want it to be helping to retain your message, not distracting from your message. So although that might be a really cool mountain range, and I get it, I live in Colorado, if it's not relevant to the topic at hand, do not put that image up unless you're going to make some sort of connection to it. It just is weird and unnecessary. I'd rather you go without a slide altogether, black out that screen, just talk in that moment, than put something up that isn't really reinforcing your message, even if it's simple with that thing. So that's caution number one, I guess, more than a tip per se. Two, maybe it's because it's 2025, but I'm going to say it. Yes, especially with AI and especially with Google and what you can just search for, it's really easy to just copy something off the internet, but please be ethical about it. Pay. There are a number of sites that are available that you can download a free graphic, free image with those things. Even in PowerPoint, they have free images that you can add into, which is fine. But if you're not going to use one of the free sources, intentional, that is known and freely distributed and available to use, then pay and source your imagery, please. It is shocking to me how many times I'll see something come up and I'll be like, I've seen that before, which is fine. I don't mind seeing the same image again, but again, give credit where it's due, source it, pay artists, especially with AI and things like this, like these graphics, these designs that you just think are no big deal. I'll just grab it from the internet. It's somebody's art. And if we can support their art, that's a good thing to do. And it's a very small thing to do. And they're not that expensive. And there's even packages like Canva has something where I can buy a package and then reuse different art and graphics in different ways throughout a presentation with those things. So it's just too easy now to support and to pay and be ethical about it to not. So that's my second caution. And maybe little ranty, soapboxy and judgy for a second with it. Third is kind of piggybacking off the first one. Keep it simple. I recently saw somebody present and their images were relatable. They actually all tie to the topic at hand, but there were like 17 on the screen and it broke my brain in a different way. I was trying to see all of it, or there was this really complex one that had so many elements that I was still trying. I had completely stopped listening to you and was totally dug into that complicated image and trying to dissect it and what did it all mean and what was in that and can I read it? And if you make me read a small little text on an image and glasses keep coming on more and more and more, right? You're just making me feel old. Don't do it. Keep your imagery simple. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be every aspect of what you were talking about. Keep it to where it just reinforces what you're saying. Sorry, words seem to be hard for me today with those things, and then there's the people that this is the other one that I've seen do that's tied to simple is they'll do some kind of like an activity, like a check-in activity, and they'll be like, what emoji are you? And then they give me a list of 20 different emojis. Too much. I want like maybe 5. 5's good. Okay, I'll give you 7. After that, it's just too much. And now again, I'm dissecting what the differences between the emojis are, wanting a different emoji, still thinking about the emojis when other people are talking. Keep it simple. You can still get your point across using the image, using the content, but not overwhelming and distracting from what you're trying to do. Less is more in many, many parts of our lives. And imagery is another one. 4, caution when you're using your imagery. And this is like 2 extremes of it, especially if you're in a PowerPoint or a keynote kind of style way, and you're going to be projecting up. 1, test the projector view. What looks great on your computer screen does not always look great projected up. Colors, sizing, just different things can come into play. So always test. Just because you can read it is simple on your computer screen doesn't mean it is when it's projected. 2, scale. I don't want an image. Like if this is the total screen of your thing, I don't want your image to be this tiny little thing way back here. And like, I can barely read it and see it and feel, this does not feel great to me, but you got all of this. At least this isn't widescreen, but sometimes I'll see widescreen with all of that. No, blow it up. But Trisha, you're too big. I know I'm a lot, but make the image the entire background and overlay words on top of it, or move it to the side, but make it be most of the screen. You don't want a lot of whites. It's fine. But they won't see the whole picture if I'm covering a little bit of it. It's fine. look, especially with tools like Canva now, and that's the one I use the most, but there's so many out there. For those of us that are challenged in this area, in marketing and view and usability and design, you see what those templates are showing. You're not seeing a template that's got a tiny little image right here next to a huge thing of text, right? It's like, no, blow it up, make it, scale it appropriately, have it be compatible with what's on the screen so that it works. And don't be afraid to use the whole image as the background and overlay on top of it. Just be careful again. Can you read it once it's up on that big projector screen versus on your computer screen? And the last one that I want to highlight, a caution with this is kind of layered. One is I've been watching a lot more people adding video into their sessions, and myself included. And the thing about videos is different than imagery, just static pictures. When somebody's playing a video, people will focus in on that video and they will almost lose what you are saying. I do it this self, and I've watched this, and I didn't actually realize this until I was watching somebody else speaking and they were talking over their video that was playing. I wasn't hearing a single word they were saying. I was watching the video. For some reason, I don't know what the brain science is behind this, but for some reason, the video, I really focus in on that and I lose what you are saying. So if you're going to play a video as an image, fantastic. Let that video be the full center. Wait for it to finish playing, or at least wait for it to finish playing the first time before you start talking. Let people watch the video. If it's important enough to have a video in there, then let the video play before you start interjecting. You can interject before, you can interject after, but don't interject during, because people will just not listen to what you are saying. They will be expecting sound and audio out of that video. They'll be just locked into that video. So that was an adjustment I had to make. There were a couple sessions I do where I have a video, but I was talking during it and realizing those points weren't landing as strongly because everybody's watching the video. So use your timing to wait till that video is played. Second bonus, I didn't write this down. If your video is long, it's got to make it worth it, right? 2 minutes. 2 minutes is usually my topper, unless I'm in a classroom setting or something along those lines. But when I'm speaking or presenting, 2 minute tops on that video. And honestly, 1 minute is probably your ideal. Less than 1 minute is probably the best case scenario with those. The other part with imagery that I want to highlight is videos tied to capturing attention is if you're telling a story, don't be afraid to turn the screen completely black. I mentioned this just earlier, but turn that screen completely black while you're telling that story, especially if it's an emotional story, especially if it's a really draw people in story with it. You don't have to constantly have some image up behind you while you are talking. In fact, it can be even more powerful to bring them solely to you and then bring them back to that image on the screen to reinforce whatever you just said or things along those lines. Because the story itself is an image. The story itself is painting a picture. The story itself is the thing you want them focused in on, and not necessarily continuing to wait on the screen. And it's just, while it's up there, it will draw people's attention. So I will sometimes, when I get to really poignant stories, not constantly, but like really key stories that I really want that attention on me, that attention on that story, the attention on the emotion in that story, I'll black out the screen so that all that attention is coming here, and then use some kind of image to reinforce the ending of my story when I'm coming back on with the presentation. So there's a couple tips, cautions, rants, annoyances, pet peeves associated to adding imagery in. It's such a powerful tool that honestly, especially with us being remote, we need it more and more in every kind of interaction and setting with these. Even this picture behind me is an actual real wall in my house. My husband won't do the wall again behind me in this office area, so it's a green screen. So I literally have a green screen kind of to doing with this, but even that imagery on the behind is intentional for me. It's nature based, it's wood based, and when we're remote, anything that's drawing you to nature, leaves, grass, wood is helpful. So what do I have coming up? I actually have a lot coming up. There is an impactful training speaking course next week. I believe that's full now and closed out, but there are a couple workshops coming up in January. There's a coaching essential mini workshop, micro credential one. There's a conflict and a change management. So 3 shop ones all coming up in January and March, like first quarter with those. So check those out. Then I have leading amazing teams that is available that I do with Jake Calabrese, and that's in February. So we don't have our next one set. So this is the one that's going to be probably in the first half of the year. So check that out. And again, you can find that on my website. Conferences. I actually have a number of conferences coming up. I will be at Scan Agile in Finland. I will be at Innovate in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. I will be at the PMI, Rocky Mountain PMI Symposium in April, I believe it is. And I have a couple more, but I can't announce them yet, but I'm very excited. So I'll be in a couple different places, also at conferences. Conference season is starting to heat up and starting to book things out there. So I will be in different locations. If you see me, come say hi. I always love chatting with people. And if there's a specific topic that you're looking for, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in February.